Hi everybody, I want to welcome you to live lecture number 2 for ECE 111, Language and Literacy. I'm sorry about the mishap with our actual live lecture Thursday evening. I had a little glitch and the recording did not go through, was unusable. So I am re-recording our live lecture, only this time it's just me. For those of you that have normally viewed this using Blackboard Collaborate, you will notice that you won't see other students in the room with you, or you won't see any messages popping up in the chat box. For those of you that are watching this via YouTube, it may be a little bit easier because you don't have the extra questions and responses going on that we normally would. So it's kind of advantages and disadvantages. Also, this may be a little bit shorter as well. So I want to move you on with our announcements for the week. We've got a busy week ahead. I want everyone to try to submit assignments early if you can. I wanted to tell everyone good job on the discussion boards. Keep up the good topics. Keep giving good explanations of the topic. I generally look for at least 200 words in that. So, and give good responses as well. I like to see the conversations that happen in our discussion boards. We learn so much from each other. Last week, you did the infant books assignment, which I love. You had to come up with 10 infant books that you could add to a list of books that were good to use with this age group. So some of you chose board books or books with lots of bright colors, simple wording. That's perfect. That's exactly what you need to do. And gave a little bit of a summary. You'll notice on the page here that there's an example of a summary that you might be able to use. Baby Says by John Steptoe, and then a short review so that you remember what the book was about. Try not to fall behind on these assignments because these book lists are weekly assignments. This week you'll be doing a toddler book list, so please think about that age group, how they move around, the things they're interested in, and try to choose books that would be best for this age group. You'll also do preschool books and primary age, which is early grade school. So in the end, you'll have a list of 40 books that you could use with various age groups. In the live lecture, I brought up the fact that some early childhood education centers, even though you will have either your ECE diploma or ECE associate of occupational science, they may still want you to get the CDA, the Child Development Associate as well. Part of the Child Development Associate is taking a test. The other part is putting together a portfolio of certain items and pieces of work. And one of these things is a list of books that you could use with this age group. So these assignments are things that you might be able to use as part of your CDA, so hang on to them, okay? Next, our student question of the week. What's the best way to start the literacy kit? I thought this was a fantastic question. I think the best way is just begin with the book. Choose the book, choose one that maybe you're familiar with or that you really enjoy. Or you might choose a book that is very popular. It's up to you. If the book that you choose is kind of an obscure book that not a lot of people know about, finding activities that go with it may be a little bit harder. You may have to build your own educational activity or fun activity to go with it. If you choose a book that's more popular, such as Brown Bear, What do you see? You'll find lots of activities on the internet or on Pinterest that are already built to go with that. So again, advantages and disadvantages. And remember on our literacy kit that you're building this for 3 to 5-year-olds, okay? So that specific age group. Next, our Pinterest boards. Your first assignment will be due this week. Please be sure that you are following me on Pinterest, Shani Snell Instructor. The reason why I have you follow me is that then your name will come up in my list of followers, and I can easily access your boards to grade them. Now don't worry, I'm only looking at the boards that we need for this course, okay? I'm not going to be searching through all your pens unless it's something I find really, really interesting. I might repin it, but I'm mainly looking for the boards for this course. So your literacy kit ideas is the board that you'll be building this week, and you're going to come up with 10 different literacy kit idea pens, so ideas of what you might build a kit around. Okay, so that is your Pinterest assignment for this week, and please let me know if you have any questions about this, or if you're unfamiliar on maybe how to build a board or how this should be put together. I'd be glad to help you out. Literacy kit, I want to go over it really quick because I like to bring it up every week. The things that you need to include. You're going to have a bag box or backpack that could be easily transportable by the child. Remember, this is a 3 to 5-year-old. It needs to be secure. Directions on how to use the kit that the parent would read before doing it with the child. At least one book in your literacy kit, a main book. It's not to say that you couldn't have a second book that maybe goes along with the same thing. So maybe you have a barnyard book and you've got one that talks about farm animals. You might add that one as well. A list of frequently used words from the main book, the one that the literacy kit is built around. Okay? A fun activity as well as an educational activity. And then you might also include related stuffed or plastic toys that could be held during the reading. So this is purely optional, but it might be something that you add. And I still want to emphasize, I don't want you to put a lot of money into this. In fact, I want you to put as little money as possible. Use the things that you have, borrow things that are needed. If you don't have children's books in your home, you might borrow from a friend or family member, or use items at a center that you work at, because you're not turning this in, you're really just taking a picture of all the items that you would put in a literacy kit, right? So do not spend a lot of cash on this. Free is even better. Here's an example of a literacy kit put together for The Very Hungry Caterpillar, which is a book we love. They put a little time into this bag, used some fabric paints. We've got a caterpillar. It's very cute, easy to carry for a child. We've got the book, of course. We have plastic insects that are represented in the book. We also have some of the foods that they could count on these pages. 4 strawberries. And then we have the days of the week, because those would be frequently used words in The Very Hungry Caterpillar. Down here we've also got things that start with the letter C, things that start with the letter B, so that they could group them together, these different items. You also have a food count board over here on the lower right-hand side that has 4 carrots, and then they have to lay the carrots out and put the number 4 as far as how many they are. This would be great for 4- and 5-year-olds. Then they're counting other vegetables, pumpkins, celery, pineapples. So you get the idea. And something that you would need to be sure and add then, because you've got fun and educational activities in here, you've got your book, something that you would add specifically for your assignment then is that step-by-step guide of how to use this literacy kit, okay? So that the parent knows exactly how it should or could be used. So Chapter 12, we need to go over a little bit of Chapter 12, which is language development through the curriculum, something you'll deal with on a daily basis. We're always talking about building the child's language. So how does this begin? If you look down at the very end of this pyramid, we've got newborns prefer the human voice, and especially mother's voice. And here's the reason. A baby that has been in the womb not only hears mother's voice all throughout the day as she speaks, as she talks on the phone, as she talks to other people, they actually feel her voice as well through their body, through the vibrations that are going through her body. So mother's voice is one of the first voices that a baby can recognize as soon as they're born. In fact, they're very drawn to their mother's voice. Second, we have cooing starting, some throaty vowel noises. We might giggle a little bit in the first half of their first year, and everybody remembers when their baby laughs for the first time because it is amazing. Then we have babbling, strings of consonants and vowels. Second half of the first year, they're trying to learn some of these sounds that they're picking up and experimenting with. Next, we have repeated sounds like mama and dada. Intonation, tone, pitch, and development. And you know, mama and dada, they're repetitive. These are usually a couple of the first ones that they say. They hear these words a lot, and they're actually fairly easy to form with your mouth as well, if you think about how those are done. Whereas ba, like as in baba, is sometimes a little bit harder to form. It's an explosive sound. So next we have more recognizable words in the first half of the second year. So maybe after a year old, we're starting to really understand some of those words. Now as parents, you'll recognize more words than strangers or family members are because you'll be used to them. So after this first year, though, other people can recognize them as well. And by the end of the second year, children generally have a vocabulary of about 25 to 50 words. So it's taken us all that first couple of years to pick up these basic words, but that's actually a huge learning process for them. So some children will have more words at this stage, some children will have less. Again, we're all individuals on our early language development. Something to consider at this age, in particular 1s and 2s, is the use of sign language. Baby sign language is so big right now. You see books about it. There are charts that you can find on the internet that show basic baby sign language. There's also a video series called Signing Time that I kind of love because it incorporates music as well. And sign language in the 1 and 2-year-olds is so wonderful because they can become very frustrated with not being able to get their needs across to their caregivers. Maybe they're thirsty, maybe they're sleepy, whatever it is, it helps if they're not speaking yet that they can use a sign to convey that message. So what you wind up having is a less stressed out baby that can communicate better what they're really needing. It's not a guessing game, which is what we run into if there's no way to communicate. We just have to guess at what's wrong. Oh, let's see if they're tired. Let's see if they're wet. Let's see if they want food. Let's see if they want water. But if they can tell us, it makes it just so much better, such less stressful. Okay, next, mono, bi, and multilingual. Let's talk about the difference in these terms. Monolingual refers to speaking only one language, and that's what a lot of us do. Bilingual is speaking 2 languages, right? And this is what we're seeing a tendency towards, more and more people speaking 2 languages. And multilingual is speaking 3 or more languages, something fairly rare in the United States, but it's actually really big in Europe because the countries are so close together. Going to a different country in Europe is like us going to a different state in the United States. So if we look at bilingual speakers in the world, in Europe we have about 44% of the population is monolingual, speaking one language, and about 56% of the population is bilingual, so speaking 2 languages, over 50% of Europe. Now if you compare this to other countries, In Luxembourg, about 99% are bilingual. In the Netherlands, about 91% are bilingual. In Germany, about 67%, 97% in Sweden. So these are really high numbers. Denmark, and then Poland. If you look at the United States in comparison, the percentage of the U.S. population who spoke a language other than English at home by year is, in 1980, around 10% of the population was bilingual. In 1990, about 13%. In 2000, we were at almost 18%. And in 2007, almost 20% was bilingual. And I wish I would have looked this up as far as where we're at now. Almost 10 years down the road, I'm sure that number's higher. So we're making a move towards our U.S. population speaking a few more languages. And it's very important in early childhood education. I saw an advertisement just last week from CAP Tulsa. They were looking for somebody that was bilingual that could speak Burmese. So this is a language that not a lot of people have, but if you do, you may be able to have a fantastic job there helping families communicate their needs. So I think these numbers are really interesting. Now, the benefits of being bilingual. First of all, bilingual children internalize negative states and externalize aggression less frequently. They're able to communicate in several different languages. They don't keep it in as much. We also have increased executive function and decision-making skills and abilities in our brain. Future languages are easier to learn, and the native language is actually enhanced by learning a second language. Bilinguals earn, on an average, $7,000 more than their monolingual peers, so you can make more money being bilingual. And lastly, most importantly, especially if you're in the aging population, is that it delays the onset of Alzheimer's and dementia, as well as other neurological issues. So later on in life, it can delay you becoming an Alzheimer's patient or causing dementia. And I guess that has to do with brain activity. I thought that was really amazing. Okay, also about 30% of companies prefer multilingual candidates when hiring. So they are looking for people that can speak more than one language. Now, in our live lecture, I'll give you a few ideas on this slide. It says, list some strategies for helping children learn a second language in the early childhood setting. So people came up with ideas like labeling the items in the classroom in the other language. Some people said you could have maybe a weekly language lesson, and that might be from a family member of a child that would volunteer to come in and talk about their language or teach a few words. What else was there? Let me think. Somebody mentioned Rosetta Stone getting a little, so Rosetta Stone would be a little too high for our ECE students, but I'm sure there are computer programs for children too on learning a language. And this wouldn't necessarily have to be sitting down at a computer by themselves. You could be using that language software or maybe the website on a smart board so that everybody could see and interact with it. So it's a great thing to introduce to children. It's a second language. And you want to sort of connect it with, maybe there's a child in the classroom that speaks that language, or maybe you're seeing more and more people of that nationality in the neighborhood. So great way to connect with your neighbors. Language and the curriculum. There's two basically types of spontaneous language. So spontaneous language is not necessarily formally taught. We have conversations, just talking to each other or talking to other children. And then we have playing with language. So they're playing together on the playground, and they're talking maybe in English, and then they're switching over to Spanish or maybe Chinese, and they pick it up even faster this way because it's part of their play. Here's a few other activities we might do to build language. Books, of course, of different languages in the classroom. I've actually seen some books that will have English on one side and then the other language on the other side, so they can read both languages and compare kind of how they're alike and how they're the same. You can read poetry or learn poetry in other languages. You could have a native speaker come in and do a little storytelling in the classroom. I saw this quite a bit around Tahlequah. The Cherokee tribe would sometimes bring out storytellers, and these were really amazing. And I know this isn't necessarily, sometimes they did some of the words in their native language, but also just native stories in general were really interesting to listen to. You might also do flannel board stories, and I know when you think of flannel board, you think of just the teacher using the flannel board and telling the story, but you can give the children opportunities to do this as well. Give them a few flannel board characters and just see the unusual and amazing stories they can come up with. Also, acting out stories and playing with puppets. So we're building languages, building vocabularies, and all these activities. Okay, so if we look at our questions here, we've got how can you best support language development in infants and toddlers? And what I'd like to do here, for those of you that are viewing this as a recording, I'd like for you to write this down as part of your summary. So I want you to give me some ideas on each of these questions in your summary for your points. So how can you best support language development in infants and toddlers? So I want you to think about those age groups and the activities that you could do with them, okay? Number 2, what can parents do to support language development? So you're coming up with ideas as a teacher in the first question, and in the second question, what can parents do? So I want you to make that differentiation there. And then lastly, in your final question, how can you encourage parents to support language development? And one idea I'd like to throw out there that you can add to, because I'd like for you to come up with some of your own, encouraging parents to support language development. A great example would be our literacy kits, because we are sending these home over the weekend with the parents. We're giving them directions on how to use it. They are reading the books to the children, you know, and hopefully they're not just reading the book one time over the weekend. We want to encourage them to read this book several times, because children really benefit from being repeatedly read a book. You may get tired of it, but in the process, they are memorizing the story and they are remembering the sequence of some of the words and some of the sentences. So eventually, when a child has heard a book enough and at the proper age, they'll be able to read along with you, and that's really what we want to accomplish. Okay? So be sure and put these answers to these 3 questions from this slide in your summary, and also that way I know you watched this all the way to the end, right? I want to be sure you're going through our live lecture. Okay, lastly, and since I don't have students currently on Blackboard Collaborate, this would be when we have a question and answer time, but we're not going to have that. So I want to thank you guys for watching the recording, for participating in the class. I want you guys to keep up the good work. My goal is all A's and B's in the class. I would love to see that. And I know you can do that. Just watch the due dates, get things turned in on time, answer your questions well, so that I know you're reading the chapters and participating. And keep up with the live lecture summaries and the discussion boards, because those do become part of your final grade. And the 2 things that really make the biggest impact on your grade that you do not want to miss are the quizzes and the final project. Quizzes can, if you miss a quiz, that can bring you down 2, sometimes 3 grades. You might go from an A to a C, and I don't want that to happen. And I've also had students make A's all the way throughout the course, and then in the very end, they don't turn in the final project. Well, this has a lot of weight on your grade, so you could easily go at the very end from an A to a C, and I don't want to see that happen. All right, and lastly, be sure and contact me if you have any questions. Send me an email, send me a Facebook message, give me a phone call, okay? I don't want you to be questioning things. So lastly, have a great weekend, everyone. We'll finish up week 2, and on Monday we will begin week 3. Thank you so much.